Hello YouTube, what is going on? It is your boy GZTV. What is good, my Ozark fans? GZTV. We're here to talk about the mid-season premiere, pretty pivotal moment in this show. What would happen if I ruled the world, am I right? A lot of really dope music stuff. I'm a huge hip-hop fan, so it's cool, man. We get Killer Mike cameos, we get Nas playing through the headphones and the speakers. It's dope. Netflix's biggest drama begins its final 7 episodes with a chapter that plays out through Ruth's eyes, memory, musical taste, and grief. After so many people have pushed Ruth around over the last 3.5 seasons, she's decided it's time to push back, and her arc transpires against a backdrop of memories of her youth with Wyatt and a soundtrack of Illmatic by Nas, which is absolutely fantastically done by the show. You can tell either Julia Gardner or like the creators of the show are big Nas and like big 90s hip hop fans. I think this is really cool to watch. It culminates in Ruth taking vengeance against Javi, gunning him down for what he did to Wyatt and Darlene, obviously. You gotta get your revenge. I mean, when it comes to family, you don't really fuck around with Ruth, especially Wyatt. Like I said in the last review, this is kind of like the final straw for her. She's not going to be convinced this time by Marty and Wendy's pleas to stop. I mean, she's had enough. And the funny thing is that Wendy figured it out first. Early on, she says to Marty, after he won't warn Javi about what Ruth is going to do, all this and you still don't understand people's will? You still don't understand what lengths people are going to go to when family members die like that? You know? She's essentially telling everyone how this episode will end, with a demonstration of Ruth's will, which is awesome. I mean, you see the heights she will go to, the stakes are high, and it's crazy. She'll still climb up there and do whatever the fuck she wants. So, The Cousin of Death opens with one of Julia Garner's best sequences, still reeling from the grief over Wyatt's death. Keep in mind, she didn't just hear the tragic news. I mean, she found the bodies. Like, she didn't just turn on her TV one day and say, oh, Darlene Snell and Wyatt Langmore found dead in their home. She was the one that reported this shit. As she's driving and crying, the episode flashes back to a memory of Wyatt and Ruth playing a game of Name the Opening Track on classic albums like The Chronic, The Black Album, and even Red. And it's really cool, how the Langmores like music, and you start to kind of learn that about them, and it's awesome. It's one of those fun memories of a relatively casual day that often jumps to mind after you lose someone you love. That is kind of like a perfect moment they would choose for something like this. And it's a time they imagined a future that will now never happen, one in which Wyatt put a pool outside his lakeside home just because that's what rich people do, even though he doesn't know about rich people. Garner nails the immediate, overwhelming grief here. I mean, this is amazing. I love the scenes that they showed here. Beautiful stuff. Yeah, it's kind of sad as well, obviously. So, cut to one of the few scenes not centered on Ruth or Javi this episode, although they're the focus of the conversation. Javi calls Marty with instructions to clean up his mess and schedule a meeting with Claire in Chicago. When Marty asks why he did it, he says that he did what my uncle should have done when she killed Del, referring to the end of the first season, which I kind of forget about Del Rio. I mean, obviously he was supposed to be like the main antagonist of this entire series, and this show just took a crazy turn and killed him the first season. I thought that was insane. So Ozark has long been interested in the ripple effect of major actions like that, and it's interesting to consider that Darlene Snell signed her death warrant that long ago with killing Del Rio. Wendy thinks that they need to warn Javi to keep the work with Shaw and the Foundation alive. She's doing it for herself again. This is selfish. She doesn't give a fuck about Ruth. Marty knows that would lead to Ruth's death because if she threatens him and he knows about it, he's going to kill her. And they care way more about Ruth than Javi. Despite the protection of the FBI, they don't really give a shit. He's still more protective of her than Wendy. It would end up his fatal flaw. Ruth works through tracks from Illmatic on her journey, starting with NY State of Mind as she goes from the grief stage to the anger stage. The stages of grief. She starts by asking Jonah for help to find Javi, but Charlotte is the one who gives the details about the Chicago meeting. And Jonah even gives her a photo from Javi's business yearbook so she knows his face. This is fucking crazy, dude. So shortly thereafter, Wendy tries a desperate move, insisting to Ruth that Javi has gone back home and won't be in the country for months, literally just lying to her fucking face, insisting that the birds will help when he returns. You're not gonna fucking do that, you asshole. What are we talking about? Wendy Burge quickly became one of the most hated characters on this show. Damn near even worse than Darlene before she died. Like, seriously. Ruth knows she's lying, but plays along. Wendy's getting easier to see through. Like, her lies aren't working anymore. Like, seriously. So, as Javi splurges on the Richard M. Daly suite at a fancy hotel, Ruth's bumping represent on the way to Kansas City to get a piece and a new license plate. She's got a plan. Right? She's gonna kill this motherfucker, sneak up on him, kill him in broad daylight. She doesn't give a fuck if she gets caught. She quickly gets to Chicago and quickly finds Rockstar parking, which is ridiculous, gets out of her car and plugs Javi. Wait, it's just a daydream while she's driving, and she has kind of a couple of those throughout the episode, and I think it's really interesting to kind of put that plot tactic here, you know. Marty calls and tries to talk her out of it, like, you can't be doing this, Ruth. This is dangerous. You obviously know who we're working with here. A nice beat here clarifies the stark differences between Marty and Wendy. Marty just trusts Ruth more, and he truly does want to know if she's alright. Like, he's genuinely asking, like, are you okay? And again, that could be a front a little bit, but, like, he genuinely cares about her way more than Wendy ever will. There's almost a sense that Marty could talk her out of drastic action again. Almost. Life's a Bitch starts to play. I mean, it sure is for Ruth, so... So Javi calls his mother on the plane and plans to be home in 2 days to do the work that her brother couldn't do. And like, what a fucking dickhead. Like, seriously? Talking shit about her brother when he's ruled the Navarro cartel for years and years? A lot can happen in 2 days, though. And Javi's fate starts to unravel as Ruth arrives in the Windy City. So she calls 3 First, who pleads with her to come home, even suggesting that Wyatt would hate this. Like, why are you doing this? Why are you trying to get revenge? I know you know who did this. This is not you. You can't be doing this, right? It triggers a memory of a very young Ruth hearing the abusive Cade fight with her mother, which is interesting because we've never really seen memories from this far back. And I think it's so cool that the show added this in. Sorry about the laundry. So she goes outside to sleep on the roof with Wyatt, which is like the origin story of why Wyatt has been sleeping on the roof all these years. Because he's like started to like it there after his father abused their mother all this time. So she's in a diner pumping coffee and Nas when she spots Killer Mike of Run the Jewels, which is awesome. A band that has been used regularly on Ozark, of course. It's a bit of a cheesy cameo, even if RTJ and Mike rule in general. I mean, they're a great group. It's still fun, though. The dialogue in the scene feels a bit shallow. She lets him listen to Illmatic, and Mike mentions how Nas grew up in the Queens projects, from which he could see the opulence of Manhattan. She wonders if he would trade all of that heartache, even if he knew it would produce Illmatic, which she's kind of like trying to compare that to her, like in a subliminal way, to her own life. Ruth is tired of looking at the power players across the river like Wendy and Javi. She's using the music of Nas and his story to give her the courage to do what she needs to do. So it's really cool how a show makes a connection to music. I've never really seen something like this. So the next morning, Ruth does an ace Charlotte impression to find out that the Javi Shaw meeting is at 10 a.m. and she sees the birds arrive. Inside, Javi commits to a contract and a price reduction with Claire Shaw as long as he gets Shaw Medical stock options. Javi is tired of being kept behind the scenes. In many ways, this episode draws lines between Javi and Ruth. He's on the other side of the river too, sick of being treated like a dirty secret. He mentions he had a professor in journalism school who treated him like a lesser being, but now they're having dinner for his money, which is interesting. It's like a full circle story he kind of shares. And he tells Marty he wants the holdings of Omar's children. It's important that Marty spots Ruth outside and doesn't tell anyone because he genuinely cares for her. If you want to do something, I guess do it, you know. He calls her instead, believing he can talk her out of it. He has no idea that she's leaving messages for a dead Wyatt and having visions of shooting the birds while they shop for real estate. You're not getting her out of this. She's going to do this. Later, Javi is having dinner with his former professor, a crucial scene for understanding his motivation. The professor insists that a donation from Javi would have to be anonymous. It's a fucking insult. You're a dick, you know? You shamed him through college and now you're damn near shaming him now. He wants Javi's money, but not the reputation associated with Javi's money. The professor goes to the washroom after the check comes and Javi follows. In the restroom, Javi offers $2 million, but his name has to be on the building or the donation is anonymous, but he beats the living shit out of this man in the bathroom. He doesn't really give him time to mold the decision, smashing the man's head into a urinal and flushing it. Javi is tired of being ignored and underestimated. You know, all these years his father has overshadowed him as the ruler of the drug empire, and he wants his fucking shot too. Ruth crashes a dinner with the Birds and Shaw, insisting they go to Claire's office. Back to represent as they drive, Wendy looks nervously at Ruth in the back seat. You know, she's listening to this type of music. She means fucking business. That's probably what Wendy's thinking. Marty tries to appeal to her decency when they get there. Ruth rants that she used to love to listen to him talk and how the Birds will tear everything to the ground and make you feel like they care. This is all a front. This is all a reputation thing. It's really a major theme of Ozark. The trouble the Birds cost to so many lives when they chose to leave Chicago. She leaves most of her ire for Wendy, who she calls fucking soulless and a predator with no conscience. She's sadder about Marty, noting how he pretends to care but has no real emotion. I mean, that is true. Marty does not have emotions. And the key line, you really think everything you do is to protect your family? This is the excuse that Wendy uses in particular. It's arguably not been true for some time now. The ruthlessness of Wendy comes through in her call to Javi to lure him into the trap. Great. See you soon. We'll put some champagne on ice. Chilling. I mean, it's fucking insane what Wendy's doing right there. Javi walks into the office and there's no monologuing. I mean, Ruth emerges and shoots him 3 times. There's silence as she leaves and the score builds. As Marty and Wendy clean up, Ruth cries in the parking garage. There's a shot of her on the roof that she spent so much time with Wyatt on, but this time she's alone. She's put his memory to rest. She's closed that door. She's cleaned out the skeletons in her closet. She has killed Javi. It doesn't necessarily solve too many problems, but hey, at least, I mean, she doesn't want to forget about Wyatt. It's obviously an integral part of the family, but I don't know. I'm out, guys. Leave a like, comment, subscribe. I'm getting ready to actually go to my grandma's, but it's nice to get those videos out right now. I'm going to go do some homework, go watch some sports, do all that stuff. I might stream tonight. I'm not really sure. I definitely got to catch the Wemby game today as well. I know I've been